And hello there, people of the known universe. As always, welcome to my channel, Sir Koolzalot. You're cool, I'm cool, we're all super cool. So it's been a while since the last video, but I promise you I've been doing my usual traveling around the country and internationally. And back in July, I had a road trip between the Bay Area, California, and Los Angeles. And this journey is nearly 400 miles each way and takes several hours. So, what better opportunity to bring a cooler along with me? And so, here's my notes on this little road trip. So I took the X6 with me. So this is the X6 Navigator from Secrets Box, or also called the Pioneer Pro from For All Family. It has some different names depending on what regional country you are in or which store you purchase it from. But in any case, pictures speak 1,000 words, and this is what the product looks like. Let's keep on going. So as always, I have some disclaimers. So I am a patient. I am on a personal quest to find the best travel coolers that are out there for my travel needs. I am posting these videos to share my journey notes. All the data that I've collected is my own, it's live data. So, and I use calibrated temperature probes, so hopefully you find this video informative for your travel needs. So this is just a quick peek at the product brochure. Of course, this is all in Chinese, but I think I've already covered this in a few other videos, so I will just keep on going. So this gives you an idea of the road trip. You might have seen this one before. I do this quite often. The quick version is it takes a good 5 to 6 hours. Actually, it's precisely 379 miles on the drive down, and likewise on the way back. There are a couple of different ways to get to Los Angeles. There is the fast way and the scenic way. So of course, in this particular trip, I took the fast way, which is an I-5 freeway that's kind of more inland, and I will maybe show you a couple of pictures of what that looks like. Now the trade-off is speed. You can get there faster, but the price to pay is it's more barrenous land, it's kind of farmland, it's very dry, and it's not the beautiful scenic California coastal way, which you can also enjoy if you're more into the tourism side. So just a heads up on that. Don't be deterred by California just because you saw some freeway pictures of the I-5. It's kind of a little bit more dry and gloomy. In Los Angeles, I spent a few days there. This time I stayed at the Hollywood Grand. It's the Autograph Collection, Los Angeles. This hotel chain is currently owned by Marriott. Haven't stayed there before. I'll tell you all about how that hotel is in regards to coolers, and let's keep on going. Let me show you what I got. So as always, this is kind of my usual complement of equipment that I take with me. As you know, the X6 packs a punch, but it also requires power. And so the 20,000 milliamp hour in-ear battery will give it a good 12 plus hours of continuous cooling. And so by having a few of these, of course, you can cover pretty much most journeys. And then, as always, I like to have really slick and ergonomic wire management. So I've got all sorts of cool cables and other things to really just accessorize the product and make it work at its best. I'm a big fan of the Kemimoto carrier bag. It has this cool aluminium inner layer, so it kind of helps with the thermal cooling. And of course, full disclosure here, I get no credit or advertisement from any of these products, so don't think I do. But I guess it is kind of a nice free advertisement. Haha. Let's keep on going. So now to get more into the details, in terms of the setup, well, really, it's not all that complex. You know, when you're driving, most cars have power outlets, USB, lighter outlets. Some of them even have plugs. Depending on the age of the car, you might have different types of USB ports and other things. But anyway, it's really just a matter of deciding where you're going to place the cooler and plugging it in. The approach that I normally take is I normally position the cooler on one of the back seats. Depending on which way I'm driving in relation to the sun, I will place the cooler in a seat which is going to be shaded, so protected from a direct hit from the sun. So one tip here with driving in a car with a cooler is really just make sure that the cooler is in a position that's really well shaded, because a direct hit from the sun is going to put it under a lot of stress and pressure. Now, some coolers can withstand a direct hit from the sun for quite a while, but at some point it will get overwhelmed. And actually, I pressure tested that in this trip, and I will show you what that looks like. Little disclosure as well, I wasn't transporting live meds with me in this trip. This was just kind of a testing run. I didn't actually need to take any doses with me because it was just a quick weekend, but it was an incredible opportunity to try out the cooler. So to the left, you can just see a picture of where I plugged it in on the back seat. That's not the final resting place, by the way. As I said, I usually put it on the back seat and use a seat belt to hold it. And then on the right here, you can start to see a first peek at the setup at the hotel. At the hotel, you know, it's really simple. You just find a sort of a shelf or a place where you're going to park your cooler, and you just plug it in and let it do its thing. With the X6, there are different ways to power. You've got the onboard battery, you've got the external battery, you've got the ports to power it, and then of course you've got the ability to plug it into the wall directly or pass through with a battery sitting in between that circuit. You can have the battery circuit sitting in between the direct power outlet to the lid, or interestingly enough, the battery itself also has a charged power outlet on the side. You'll want to be careful to make sure that the draw of power here is correct, because of course if your wires cannot handle the ampage or the amp wattage kind of setup, you could end up kind of getting things pretty hot or toasty. So you'll definitely want to make sure that these cables can kind of handle current and power and different things like that. So just kind of a heads up on that. The cables that I use pack a punch, so I'll refer you back to the accessories page so you can see which ones I picked that have been pretty well tested at this point. So this is just a peek at the vehicle. Actually, I got this one. This is a rental from Hertz. It's a Mercedes. It's a GLS. It's a pretty nice SUV. I needed an SUV because I was actually helping someone with a move in Los Angeles. and so the cargo space was kind of important. So anyway, excitingly enough, this was not the car that I rented. I rented a pretty basic SUV, but they didn't have any, and so I actually got a double upgrade. This Mercedes is actually super expensive from a day-to-day rental perspective, but I got it for probably like two rental tiers lesser than it was, so that's kind of cool. And then it was basically a brand new car. I was excited to see that there was like only 1,800 miles on the clock. So of course I added a little bit to that. Actually, maybe it was 3,200 miles. I think I'm misreading that display there. I think that was the miles from the last time the panel was reset, and then the total miles driven is the lower one. I'm showing a picture of the gas pump. Actually, this gas tank was incredible. It cost like nearly $200 to fill it up to the top with this road trip. I don't think I've ever had a gas tank that can take that much gas. But anyway, that was kind of intriguing. It is what it is. But it definitely had a good mileage range. You could drive all the way from the Bay Area to Los Angeles without needing to fill up the car, which was quite impressive. So this is just looking a little bit more closely at the car and the outlet. So very simple. There's a USB port in the mid console for the back seat, and that's what I use to power the cooler. And then that's just looking a little bit more closely at the car. It was a GLS 450 if you're interested. Now on the way back, I was carrying quite a bit of cargo, so the rear seats were no longer available. And so what I did was there was a small little alcove that I created behind the passenger chair, and that's where the cooler sat for the return part of the drive. And then, of course, what better way to show this more than an actual video? So this is the car just at the front of the hotel in Los Angeles. So at least now you can sort of get a feel for the vibes here. And then, as I mentioned, the I-5 freeway is very barrenous, and so I thought I would include a couple of the on-the-road pictures here. So very dry, very rugged. There's kind of hills, sometimes little mountains. The grass is very dry. There's a lot of cow farmlands as well in some of the places. But it's certainly not the most scenic road you can take. But just to give you a perspective, if you drive down the I-5 from the Bay Area to Los Angeles, you can usually clock that in a good 5 or 6 hours total. If you take the scenic route via the 101 through Santa Barbara and all of that, you're probably looking at a good 12 plus hours of driving, because it's very slow, windy roads and stuff. So that's sort of your trade-off to think about. But if you're a tourist, you'll definitely want to do the 101 scenic path, because it's very, very cool, and you can probably stop at a few places along the way. And of course, there's lots of reservoirs and wind farms and different things like that. So I thought I'd show you these photos as well. And now getting back to the star of the show, the X6. So the reason I'm showing you this picture here, this one's important. So what I mentioned was I did some stress testing of the X6 this time. So this is my test unit, not the one that I travel with. I wouldn't dream of doing this to my actual travel unit. So just to forewarn you on that, don't break your main unit in the spirit of pushing it too far to try it out. That's why I'm making these videos. So what I did when I arrived in Los Angeles on that first day, I actually left the car parked outside, and it was super hot. it was probably hovering in the 90s Fahrenheit. But one thing to be aware of is, of course, a car sitting in the sun is going to really heat up. Probably some of the surfaces are going to go as high as 110, 120 Fahrenheit. Not joking. And then, of course, if your cooler takes a direct hit from the sun, that's going to really start to heat things up. And so I very deliberately positioned the cooler in the middle back seat, let it sit there pretty much. I arrived mid-morning, and it basically sat there all through midday, all the way into the evening. And of course, at the right moment, I think this was around 2ish p.m., it started to take a direct hit from the sun, and I recorded all this data with temperature probes. So I'll show you how it holds out. Cautionary alert: you really just don't want to do this. This is really pushing things a bit too far. You want to really make sure that your cooler never takes a direct hit from the sun. Always kind of keep it shaded. Always think about the location you're going to place it in the car. Even if you're driving, you might be driving and not realize that it's actually sitting in the sun in the back seat. So you'll want to really make sure that it's in a shaded location, and that will give you maximum value for your maximum thermal protective value for looking after your meds. So. Sorry, I might be preaching to the choir here. I'm sure many of you subscribers know this drill already. By the way, the battery there that was showing, that was the 27,000 milliamp hour in-use battery. So when I park the cooler and it's in for a longer haul, like driving or sitting at a hotel, I've got into this practice now of using the 27,000 milliamp hour in-use battery. So just to give it a little bit more power there, in case something happens for those long hours of cooling. This is the hotel. So this is what it looks like. This is what the room looks like. The lobby was super cool. Actually, this was a really nice hotel. I was super impressed. Very much enjoyed staying here. So let's look at this one a little bit more closely. So there you can see the cooler on arrival. They had kind of this nice bar area, very kind of interesting, eclectic, retro kind of decor. One thing that really intrigued me was the let's call it the cabinet. The clothes cabinet was glass paneled. I've never seen a cupboard like that that's it's sort of glass transparent. Very interesting, very unusual. The view to the right there is sort of Los Angeles, and you can see kind of the Los Angeles mountains in the background. So here's a different view of that. So there's that glass cupboard. Here you can see the cooler where I set it down. This is basically where the X6 is going to stay for the stay. It was only a few days, so nothing dramatic. And of course, there's a nice coffee machine there, always important. Now I'm going to talk to you about that mini bar fridge as well. So I did put a temperature probe in the fridge to see what it could do, and I have the data for that to show you. So there are some nice videos to prove that I really did do this. You never know, could be making it up, but videos speak 1,000 words, pictures speak 1,000 words as well. So there's some nice scenery from Los Angeles, and in the middle there I managed to catch a cool, this was a sunset, actually, not a sunrise. So it's kind of cool to see that. And there's just this is just photos instead of the videos. So at the top of this hotel, there's a cool bar, lounge, club, swimming pool. That's a picture that I took. That's not a stock photo. We went up there and had like a bar dinner. It was very cool. It's like this French music type club that it turns into at the nighttime. A little bit too old for the clubbing piece, but it was sort of fun to catch the earlier in the evening vibes from that. And then to the right there, you can kind of see that sort of hotel room set up there with the coffee machine and the minibar fridge. So let's zone in a little bit on this minibar fridge. So it was nicely stocked. And so what better thing to do than drop a temperature probe right in the middle and see what it can do. So this one's a Tempify probe. So I'll show you the data on that in a minute. And I played around with the settings a little bit, but spoiler alert, minibar fridges aren't usually the best for medicines. In terms of data collection, for most of this trip, it was really Tempify probes and tempo disc probes. At some point during the trip, actually, one of the tempo discs failed, but fortunately, because I had multiple temperature probes running at the same time, I was able to nonetheless get a continuous stream of data. I actually believe that it was the thermal shock from the parking in the sun for most of the day in the afternoon that caused the tempo disc to essentially just give up. Not 100% sure, but looking at the timing of when it packed in, pretty suspicious that I pushed that one too far. So to forewarn you, don't overly stress test your live travel coolers because you may just end up breaking them. So this is the money shot for today's presentation. So I'll kind of walk you through it. We got the usual ambient temperature plot, so you can kind of see what's going on. You've got the cooler. You can kind of see what's going on there. You've got different temperature thresholds. You've got the 86 Fahrenheit line for critical insulin levels, and then you've got the 36 to 46 zone, and then of course you've got the freeze zone, 32 Fahrenheit. So the drive, good 6-7 hours each way. As you can see, really, for the most part, this was an extremely uneventful trip. The X6 cooler performed exceptionally well, which is really, really amazing. Here you can kind of see at what point the one of the sensors kind of died, and actually I switched it out for a new one. So here you can kind of see the new sensor coming into play. I opened up the kit briefly, so you can kind of see I popped in a new sensor in the X6, and here you can kind of see it joining the party. But to forewarn you, you can kind of see I'm pretty sure that it was the parked car in the 100 and nearly 110 degrees. Can you see that? So the parked car, the temperature probe that was measuring ambient temperature that was sitting just outside the medicine cooler clocked 107 degrees Fahrenheit in the peak of the sun. So here you can see the X6 cooler. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to zone in on this in a little minute to show you this part of the graph a little bit more carefully, because I was very impressed with its what it could do. I mentioned I put a probe in the hotel minibar fridge. Whoops, minibar. And yeah, as you can see, it barely made its way down to 55 Fahrenheit. So just to forewarn you, not all fridges or minibars come the same at hotels, and this one, there is no way this one is suitable for most medicine storage. So that was kind of just a little. I would have been surprised actually if a minibar fridge could go down to 46 Fahrenheit. But there you go. There's the data to prove that that this particular hotel is not. Doesn't have a good minibar setup for medicine. So let's look at that part of the graph more closely, because I think this one's the most interesting part of today's presentation. So you can kind of see, I arrived just before lunch. So now here the car's no longer air conditioned. There was a couple of little blips. Actually, I was packing the car now and then, so I did come back and I opened it up. So it kind of cooled a little bit, but you can kind of see the momentum was building around it getting hotter and hotter and hotter. The car was sitting in the sun. It progressively went up to the 90s, and then eventually when the sun directly hit the cooler on the back seat, that was when it really started to kind of heat up. And then at some point, the cooler started going back into the shade and started cooling down. But check this out. So here's the temperature profile inside the cooler. And so incredibly, even though the cooler had taken a direct hit from the sun, ambient temperature was at the 90s, and then so this is in the shade, and then in the sun, the surface temperature of the materials and other things in the car or whatever were easily in the 105, 110 range. This cooler was able to withstand that direct hit from the sun for nearly 2 hours. It held out for nearly 2 hours at keeping below 46, and incredibly it almost actually made it all the way through, and then you can kind of see it was able to very quickly recover as the temperature fell a little bit. But look at this, from around probably around lunchtime ish to maybe around you can see the time here, but this was probably like 5-6 p.m. This was a pretty intensive kind of period for the cooler sitting on the back seat inside a parked car in Los Angeles. And I have to say, this is really impressive. I was really quite surprised that it was able to hold out so well. Fair dudes to the X6 here. Very, very impressive with this. And, this, just keep in mind that this zone here, we were reaching 110 Fahrenheit, but had it been like 100 or something like that, this cooler would have very comfortably have been able to sort of hold out. So anyway, thought you might find that interesting. For your travel journeys, if you do have a difficult period where you're outside for maybe an hour or so, what this data does here is it can give you a little bit more confidence to know that your cooler is going to do a really good job of resisting those high temperatures. But do be cautious. It's not going to hold out forever. It will give in at some point. But at least you've got maybe an hour or two of really nice safety buffer here where you can sort of run to the shade or something. Of course, if you get stranded on a desert island or in the middle of the desert, I'm going to say, well, after the 2-hour clock passes, I think you're going to be in a little bit of trouble with your medicines, unless you can find shade. So that's kind of a wrap. To bring this home then, I think for road trips or RVs or things like that, I mean, this X6 cooler is really, really impressive. I mean, the things that make it a little bit more painful in terms of like traveling by air and other things like that, because it's kind of a bigger system, it's a little bit more bulky, but you can actually still do it. I've already proven that with some of my videos. If you have a road trip or something like that, I mean, this thing is like really, really good to have, really impressive. The only thing that is still a little bit of a nuance is the onboard battery. 10,000 milliamp hours doesn't give you a lot. You get maybe 5 or 6 hours of sort of power from that, and then, as you noted, just driving around California, you're gonna consume 6 hours pretty easily. But fortunately, because you can kind of plug it in and stuff, maybe that doesn't matter so much. So maybe the battery power is more of a kind of an emergency reserve than anything else. So yeah, a little bit of a trade-off, a little bit of a coin flip. Depends on what your specific travel setup and needs are. And then finally, I'm still going to note that there's a lot of plastic with this unit, and then that by itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, but where it is a little bit tricky is the sockets. So the connectors for the onboard battery, the plugs and stuff, they're all plastic-based materials, and so wear and tear will eventually catch up with that kind of a design. Plastic will, of course, eventually start to sort of deform. You got elastic deformation, but then it becomes plastic deformation, and when plastic deformation starts, it will start to kind of distort and deform just a little bit more and more and more, and eventually it will snap. And so I think that's going to be a little bit of a weak design point for this cooler. But that said, if you have a setup where you simply use the onboard battery as your emergency reserve, you may actually never need to really unplug that battery from its socket, and so maybe that point becomes kind of a moot point. But if you're planning to use that onboard battery as part of your journey, and you might have 2 or 3 of them and you're exchanging them every time you do a trip and stuff, I think that's going to have a toll on the wear and tear. So stuff to think about. So that's kind of a wrap for this presentation. A little bit faster than the usual ones. Heads up, I recently discovered that there is a new product line that's actually apparently very, very popular in China called the X9. And I am hoping to be able to receive some of this product for testing in the next month or 2. And so I'll keep you posted on that. I have to say I'm kind of excited about this particular product. It's also kind of got some cool colors, so I really, really hope that I'm gonna be able to get my hands on some of these to test them out and then tell you what I think. And of course, if you want to join the Cool Club community, we've got all the usual stuff. You can chat on Discord directly or with fellow travelers. You can connect on X or on Reddit or lots of different places depending on what your community interests are. Or, of course, if you want to go solo, you can always connect with me directly. Would love to hear from you, especially if you think I can help you out in any way. And of course, if you are a medicine or travel cooler manufacturer, or you're a patient that wants advanced testing or whatever, you can always request testing services. I've got all sorts of different cool things that could be possible depending on your testing needs. And the most important one here is that I am independent. And then the Cool Shop is continuing to grow. Lots of inventory that's been thoroughly tested, battle tested with live trips and different things like that. So if you are interested in any of this, especially if you want a custom setup because you have specialized needs, feel free to connect with me. Everything is tailorable, customizable, and of course the quality is always there because every unit is individually tested to make sure that it meets full performance specifications. So that's a wrap from me. I'm wishing you a wonderful week, and I will talk to you again.